Marcus stood in the back of the glass boardroom like he didn't belong there. Because technically, he didn't. Suits filled the room like smoke. Tailored, expensive, impenetrable. A $250 million deal was being signed. Laptops open, fingers poised, faces smug. Cameras flashed. Investors nodded. The CEO grinned. And in the middle of it all, Marcus, a janitor with a limp, a rag, and a yellow mop bucket, stood 1 inch too far from the exit, holding a screwdriver. He wasn't supposed to be in the room. He wasn't supposed to see the screen. And he sure as hell wasn't supposed to notice that one line buried at the bottom of the contract. But he did. And 30 seconds later, he reached over, gripped the panel labeled Main Power, and flipped the switch. The lights cut, the screen died, and the screaming started. Because sometimes the man you've ignored for 10 years is the only one who's actually paying attention. Tell us in the comments. Would you risk your job to stop a $250 million mistake? Or just keep mopping and mind your business? Subscribe if you believe the people at the bottom often see what the top refuses to. Marcus started every morning with the same silence. No music, no earbuds, no podcast whispering motivation into his brain. Just the squeak of his cart's wheels and the click of his limp against the marble hallway. He didn't mind it. Silence had its own rhythm. Besides, it was the only part of the day where he didn't have to dodge people, pretending not to see him. He rode the freight elevator up to the 47th floor, executive suites, and the moment the doors opened, the air changed. It always did. Perfume, money, a little cold air from a vent that only worked on this floor. Marcus wheeled his cart down the hall. Glass offices lined the walls like museum displays. Corner desks, $900 chairs, succulents that never needed watering. No eye contact, just blue glow laptop screens and silence behind noise-canceling glass. He started wiping fingerprints off the big boardroom window, the one that faced the city. You could see the whole skyline from here. The clouds always looked like they were holding a secret. And then he saw it. A single silver cufflink, embossed with initials, RC, lying just below the CEO's chair. Marcus bent down, picked it up, held it carefully like it was something alive. Walked over to the desk and set it gently beside the laptop. Didn't touch a thing, not even the mouse pad. That was the mistake. Less than 2 minutes later, the door creaked open again. Only this time, it wasn't the silence that walked in, it was security. "Hey, sir." The tone was polite enough to be threatening. "We got an alert. Everything all right in here?" Marcus straightened his back slowly, one hand still on the rag, the other brushing off his pant leg. "Just cleaning. Found this." He motioned toward the cufflink. "Didn't want it lost." The guard's face didn't move, not even a blink. "You opened the laptop?" Marcus blinked. "No, sir." "You hovered over it. That sets off a motion alert. It's company policy." Marcus looked back at the laptop. The screen was black. "I didn't touch it." The second guard stepped in. "Mind if we check your cart?" "No," Marcus said, stepping aside. He'd already been through this routine twice this month. Once for being too close to the exit door, and once for staying too long in the break room. They didn't find anything. They never did. But this time, when they left, they said something new. "Stick to maintenance zones only," the taller one added. "Stay off the executive side unless explicitly scheduled." Which was interesting, because he was scheduled. Every Tuesday. Every Friday. He reached into his back pocket, pulled out his printed schedule, and stared at the letters. Zone 4B, Exec Conf RM. Printed in black ink. Didn't matter. The schedule wasn't what decided anything up here. Not really back downstairs in the janitor's break room, which was more of a hallway with chairs. Marcus sat with his coffee. He didn't say much. Nobody did. Nobody wanted to talk about how you could clean the same glass door every week for 3 years and still be treated like a burglar if you looked through it too long. But it wasn't the security guard that stayed with Marcus. It was the look he'd seen on the desk when he set the cufflink down. Not the laptop, that wasn't on. It was the document. Something had been open on the screen before it went black. A contract. Something long and heavy. Marcus had cleaned enough boardrooms to know what a deal in motion looked like. He remembered one word, a name, a company. And he remembered that name because he'd seen it somewhere else before. not in the office, in the news. Something in his stomach shifted. Not fear, not yet. Just tension, like something off key in a song you didn't know was wrong until you heard it again. Later that day, as he was wheeling his cart out the freight entrance, a junior analyst at one of the only black staffers Marcus ever saw on that floor gave him a nod. Rough morning? Marcus raised an eyebrow. They called us all about a protocol breach, the guy said, with air quotes. Marcus gave a tired smile. Guess I broke protocol by picking up a cufflink. The analyst lowered his voice. You didn't hear it from me, but they're signing something big tomorrow. Global merger, crazy fast-tracked. Marcus nodded, but inside, something wasn't sitting right. Not because of the merger, because of that name on the contract. The one he'd seen just for a second. He couldn't shake the feeling it didn't belong there. We're just getting started, but from here on out, things only get more intense. Stay to see what Marcus wasn't supposed to hear and what he does next. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Was this just bad luck or something deeper? Marcus didn't plan on overhearing anything. He wasn't creeping through hallways or pressing ears to walls like some kind of spy movie extra. He was just emptying the trash cans. Like always. Quiet. Invisible. But that's the problem with people who think they're too important to be listened to. They talk like no one else is there. It was 6:48 a.m. the next morning. Marcus was back on 47, 2 hours before the so-called historic board meeting. He had been reassigned last minute, not to another floor, not even another building. Just to utility closet service? Translation? Stay out of sight. He didn't argue, he took the cart, rolled it right past the espresso machine no one let the custodial team touch, nodded to the same analyst from yesterday, who this time didn't nod back. Different vibe today. Everyone was sharp, suits tighter, haircuts fresher, coffee stronger. A deal was about to go down. Marcus quietly worked his way down the hall. A door to one of the executive offices was half closed. Nothing unusual. What was unusual, was the voice inside. We're rushing this, someone was saying. That clause hasn't been cleared through compliance. You think they'll catch it? It's buried. They won't. Not if we close fast enough. Silence, then. Besides, who's going to stop it? The janitor? Marcus stood frozen. The mop water was still sloshing behind him, but he didn't move. The voice had been laughing. Casual. Like ethics was a dress code you could break if your tie was expensive enough. Marcus stepped back. Quietly. Turned his cart around and moved toward the service closet. But something was snapping inside him. He had heard deals before. He had seen the champagne, the pats on the back, the thank you for your service gift cards handed out to the cleaning staff as if it meant equity. But this wasn't just corporate greed. This felt surgical. Cold. Like a room full of people plotting to walk someone into traffic and still sue them for denting the car. He finished his shift. Didn't say a word. But the name on the document wouldn't leave his head. Because he remembered it from a story last year, one about financial crimes, embezzlement, shell companies. The kind of thing the news covered for 2 days and buried on the weekend. And now it was here, on this floor, in that document. He looked around. Nobody here was going to stop it. Not the smiling receptionist with the schedule book. Not the 3 VPs currently discussing seating charts and pastry trays. Not the analyst who now walked past Marcus like he'd never seen him. By 9:30, the tension in the building was thick enough to bottle and sell as cologne. Marcus was told, by email of course, to assist with boardroom prep, which meant roll in, set up water bottles, and get out before the clients arrive. He did exactly that. He laid out the bottles, wiped down the conference table, polished the glass pitcher twice, checked the floor one last time, and then froze. On the screen, already open and before the room had even filled, was the contract again. He shouldn't have looked. He knew it. But he did. The same name, the same buried clause. It was still there, still real. He backed away. The lights buzzed overhead. The view of the skyline blurred in the window's reflection. The chandelier above shimmered like ice. That's when someone walked in. Not a suit. Security. Hey, Marcus. The tone was soft. Too soft. We're going to need you to handle another zone for the next hour. Boardroom's restricted now. Marcus didn't answer right away. His eyes lingered on the clause, just long enough to burn it into memory. Then he nodded. Sure thing, he said. Rolled the card out, but didn't take the elevator. He stayed, in the janitor's stairwell, one floor down, watching the overhead lights change as people filled the conference room above him. He stood there with the power panel at his back. That's when it hit him. He had the key. Literally. The emergency breaker box had one latch. The same latch only janitors used when doing nighttime maintenance. And only senior janitors had the override key. Marcus had been here 17 years. 17. He looked up at the ceiling. He could hear the muffled laughter, the CEO's booming voice, the clinking of glasses, and then quiet, pen on paper. That was when Marcus reached into his pocket, felt the cold metal key, felt the sweat in his palm. His heart was punching through his chest. Do it. Don't do it. That's not your job. But who else was going to stop it? The analyst? HR? The intern who brewed the wrong coffee and got demoted? No, nobody else even noticed the clause. Nobody else cared. And if Marcus didn't act now, no one ever would. Everything's building to the moment. What happens next isn't just unexpected. It's the kind of move that flips the table. Want more stories like this? Subscribe. This one's not even close to over. Marcus didn't flip the switch in anger. He flipped it with precision, with calculation, like a surgeon pressing on the only nerve that could stop a hemorrhage. 1 second, the boardroom above was bathed in light, digital screens flickering, deals flying. The next, silence. Absolute silence, the kind that eats up air. The chandeliers dimmed, the massive screen cut out mid-signature, and the voice of the CEO, who had been mid-sentence, fell off a cliff. Back upstairs, chaos bloomed like fire. Phones stopped working, laptops froze. The smart blinds locked halfway open, throwing diagonal shadows across the walls. People were yelling, sharp, clueless, privileged yelling. Who touched the server? Is this a cyber attack? Where's IT? Do you know how much this costs per second? Marcus didn't hear it from inside the room. He heard it from the hallway, standing calm, hands behind his back, the same way he stood when elevator doors opened on the wrong floor and he didn't want to scare anyone. A security guard brushed past him, yelling into a dead walkie-talkie. Power cut from sub-panel 4? Who the hell's on 46 right now? Marcus didn't say a word. He stood still. The key was already back in his pocket. Within minutes, backup generators kicked in. But only the essentials, elevators, exit lights, internal comms. The boardroom tech? Offline. The cloud contract system? Offline. Someone had to physically reboot the screen, pull the dock, check the signatures again. And that's when the voice cracked. From the far end of the table, a junior associate, mid-20s, sweaty, shaking, looked up from a printed copy of the contract and said, "Wait, something's not right." Boom. Just like that, the deal hit a wall. The CEO, a man named Raymond Callahan, was not used to being questioned. Certainly not by someone who didn't even have a chair at the table. "What do you mean something's not right?" he asked, smile stretched thin. The associate held up the paper, pointing. "There's a clause in here. This wasn't in the original. It changes the ownership stake retroactively." Raymond's smile vanished. Someone else chimed in. "That clause's timestamp is only 4 hours old." Silence. Then movement. Then 4 phones pulled out. 4 voices dialing legal. The air turned thick with panic. Down the hall, Marcus leaned on his mop handle. He didn't smile, didn't flinch, didn't run. Because this wasn't a prank. This wasn't sabotage. This was correction. He'd spent 17 years listening to the building hum. Watching deals made in bad faith get celebrated with champagne. Watching brilliant ideas from interns get stolen by directors who didn't remember their names. Watching the janitorial team cut in half, then blamed when something didn't sparkle. He wasn't angry. He was tired. And when you're tired enough, sometimes, you flip the damn switch. 10 minutes later, 2 security guards cornered him. "Marcus, power went down. You were on 46, that right?" He nodded. "Did you touch anything?" No, Marcus said, just cleaning. They looked at each other. One of them sighed. You've been here a while, right? 17 years. The guard's eyes softened for a second. We're going to need to check your access logs. Go ahead. They left him standing there. No cuffs, no yelling, because even they didn't know how to process what just happened. Inside the boardroom, the CEO sat with his hands pressed together, elbows on the table. The clause was being dissected like a tumor. It turned out someone had tried to warn Legal, a junior compliance officer. She'd flagged the clause the night before. Her email was ignored. Now it was the only thing anyone wanted to talk about. And the man who stopped it was outside, in a faded uniform, holding a mop. The rest of the day unraveled quietly. No one made eye contact in the hallways. The associate who spotted the clause left early, eyes wide like he'd survived a car crash. HR scheduled a team wellness meeting for the following Monday. And Marcus? Marcus clocked out at exactly 4:01 p.m., walked past the same receptionist who didn't see him, held the elevator for someone who didn't thank him, and stepped into the sunshine like nothing had happened, because to the system, nothing had. Power went out. Deal paused. No harm, no foul. But deep under the surface, behind polished doors and blackout glass, the cracks had started to form. You've seen the blackout, but wait until you see what it exposed. The next part changes the whole game. The thing about sudden blackouts in a boardroom? They don't just kill the power, they kill the performance. With the lights gone, the theater vanished. No screens, no slide decks, no artificial confidence projected onto smart glass walls. What remained was just people. Breathing, blaming, breaking. While the IT team scrambled upstairs, Marcus sat alone on the bottom step of stairwell 46. He wasn't hiding. He was waiting. For what? He wasn't sure. Footsteps echoed overhead. Voices too loud, forced laughter. Someone barked damage control like it was a spell that could reverse time. Then came the silence. The long one. The kind that doesn't come from a power outage. The kind that comes from realization. Somewhere behind those locked doors, the CEO was losing his grip. It started small, a finger-tapping glass, a polite cough from Legal. Then the murmurs. One line, one clause, one staffer with enough courage to speak above his pay grade. This would have forfeited 14% of post-merger control to a shell company. Another voice. The IP transfer terms are incomplete. And another. There's no record of the amendment being approved. And then came the question. Who signed off on this version? No one answered, because no one wanted their name attached to the wrong side of history. In the dark, people whispered more than they ever did in light. One intern texted a screenshot to a journalist friend. She didn't send it, but she almost did. One partner slipped out the side door and never returned. And one assistant came looking for Marcus. Her name was Erica. Late 30s, sharp, fast, the kind of woman who noticed everything. She found him in the hallway, folding up his cleaning rag like it was a contract of his own. Hey, she said, almost breathless. You were here when the power cut? Marcus nodded. She looked at him like she already knew, like the quietest man in the building had just thrown a wrench into a $1 million engine, and walked away without looking back. You saw the clause? Another nod. She exhaled. You were right. He didn't blink, just said, I read slow, but I read careful. And for the first time in that building, someone laughed. Not the cruel kind, not the fake boardroom laugh, a real one. You saved their asses, she said. No, he replied. I stopped them from selling them. An hour later, the CEO stepped out. His face looked human, not polished, not staged. The fake calm had cracked. The hair was out of place. And he walked, and for the first time in years went without an entourage. He passed Marcus by the elevators, didn't say thank you, didn't say anything, but he looked at him. Really looked. And Marcus. He just nodded. Because power doesn't always come with a title. Sometimes it comes from knowing when to cut the lights. The following Monday, a notice went out to all staff. As part of our renewed commitment to transparency, we're launching a new ethics review council. Open seats will include representatives from all staff levels. That wasn't policy. That was fear. Systemic change never starts with a meeting. It starts with the sound of a fuse blowing and the wrong people asking the right questions. Marcus didn't apply, didn't ask for a raise, didn't even tell his coworkers what had happened. He just cleaned the conference room, same rag, same routine. Except this time, no one asked him to leave the room early. This time, someone held the door open. The lights came back on, but the real shift had already begun. The final chapter? It's not about power. It's about who's allowed to use it. The lights came back, but something stayed broken. Not the bulbs, not the screens, the illusion. That quiet, humming confidence on floor 47, the one built on lanyards, glass walls, and never looking anyone in the eye, it didn't come back. People still smiled, still held lattes, still buzzed into meetings with the same fake urgency. But now they glanced over their shoulders, checked the small print twice. And sometimes, not often, but sometimes, they nodded at Marcus when he passed. Not because they respected him, because they feared what he might know. 3 days after the incident, Marcus was called into an HR check-in. The office was colder than usual, glass table, leather chair that made too much noise when he sat. The HR rep polished, tight smile and tried to keep it breezy. "No disciplinary action," she said quickly. "We just wanted to thank you for your years of service." He said nothing. "And," she added, pulling out a folder, "offer a modest compensation for the inconvenience." She slid a check across the table. $500. Marcus looked at it, then at her. "Is that what truth costs in this building?" he asked. She didn't answer, just cleared her throat and moved on. "We'd also like to offer you a lateral reassignment, facilities oversight for another building, new badge, new team." Translation: "Please go be invisible somewhere else." He stood up, didn't touch the check, didn't take the new badge. Just said, "I already have a key. I think I'll keep using it." And walked out. That same afternoon, a new sign appeared outside the executive conference room. Nothing dramatic, just a single printed page taped beside the keypad. "All staff may enter during scheduled cleaning hours." Small, simple, but in a place like that, revolutionary. Because every system of power depends on one thing: convincing you that you don't belong in certain rooms. Marcus had cut the lights once. Now he was holding the door open. The last scene? It wasn't grand. It wasn't viral. No music swelled. No one clapped. Marcus just walked back into that same boardroom, same mop, same limp. Except this time, the CEO stood. Not fast, not dramatically. But he stood, and he didn't speak. He just reached out, picked up a water pitcher, and handed it to Marcus. A small thing. But this time, he used both hands. Like he understood he wasn't just handing over water. He was handing back something that had been stolen a long time ago. And Marcus? He nodded once. Didn't smile. Didn't bow. Just turned, stepped outside the room, and let the door close behind him. Click. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is not flip the switch. It's choosing who gets to hold the key next. If you read to the end, tell us in the comments who are the people in your life who hold the key but never get seen. Don't forget to subscribe. Stories like this are just getting started.